Away we go.
Here we go. Good evening. I'll try that one more time. Good evening.
Mic on.
Is my mic on? Okay. So we're going to begin. Welcome to the September 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Commission. So we will begin by having Becky Pepper read us the rules of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distraction during the meeting. When the chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raised hand function to indicate that they wish to speak during public comment. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide comments. Please state your name before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn video off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format to access and participate in this meeting is at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will move into general business. Jeff, any items for this evening?
No additional items for general business this evening.
Great, thank you. Then we will begin by receiving and approving the Planning Commission meeting minutes from August 25th and 26th. Are there any comments or discussion about those meeting minutes? Do we need to take them one at a time, or are we good? All right, so I will first look for a motion then for approving the meeting minutes from August 25th.
I'll move that we approve the meetings from August 25th.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye. One abstention.
One abstention. All right. I will look for a second motion regarding the August 27th meeting minutes.
I'll move approval of the August 27th meeting.
Is there a second? All right. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
One.
One abstention. All right. With that, we will then move to committee reports. This is where we receive reports from any committees that have met over the last month. I believe only the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board is up for report. Do either of the two of you have a report?
No meeting.
No meeting. Right. All right. No meeting this month. So we'll move into communications. Jeff, is there any written communication from the public for us to receive tonight?
All communications that were received on time were included as part of your packet this evening. Additionally, we have a request from the applicant of item number 2. Unfortunately, they are out of town and not able to attend tonight, and they request that you motion to defer the item to the next available meeting.
That I will look for a motion.
Be happy to move deferral for, Jeff, how long did they want to?
I would say the next available meeting, because then just in case there's another issue that pops up, just that gives them some flexibility.
Okay, until the next planning commission meeting.
No, I believe it'd be the next available meeting.
The next
Would be the-
available meeting.
It won't necessarily be October's meeting.
The next available meeting for the applicant to be present, is that what we're doing?
Just a motion to be the next available meeting would suffice, just in case that they're not available in October, they could go to November.
Okay, the next meeting they're available.
And with that, is there a second?
Second.
Yes, there's a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. So this is where we will receive written communication from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners.
None this evening.
All right. Any action of waiver or requests or determinations made by the city engineer?
Also none this evening.
All right. And this evening, we've now come to where we will seek ex parte communications by any members of the commission on any of the items that are on the agenda for tonight. But since we've deferred item number 2, I would assume this only applies to item number 1. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
All right. So any ex parte communications relating to the agenda item this evening?
Hey, Chelsea, this is Gary. I've had a couple of instances. There's a few neighbors to the project that I've spoken to over the last several months. They've just shared concerns that they've had about aspects of the project, but no information that's not currently in the packet. I received a phone call from the applicant about 8 weeks ago asking questions about the land development code. I referred the applicant to staff and to Randy Larkin. Everything else, as far as I know, is in the packet.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Can you see Commissioner Baroto? I can't see him. Okay. Okay. And so at this point, we'll take any declarations for anyone who's going to abstain from any specific item on the agenda this evening. Any abstentions? Okay, there'll be none. And at this point, we've come to the general public comment. This is where we take general public comment from the audience on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda. So if you're here to speak to the item on the agenda this evening, hold your public comment until we get to that item. But if you have public comment regarding something else for the commission, now would be the time to approach the podium or raise your hand online. Does not appear to be any general public comment this evening, so we will move on to our regular agenda, where we will move to consider approving a preliminary development plan. Item number 1. Sandy Day will be the planner. She'll do her presentation. Commissioners may ask questions of staff, and then we will open it up for public comment after the presentation and the applicant's opportunity to address the commission.
I learn. Okay, good evening, Commissioners. Sandy Day. This item that you're considering is essentially a revised preliminary development plan of a project that originally started back in 2013-2015 timeframe. This is part of the Jayhawk Club plan development. This is the last phase of that development. All of the other lots have been developed. It's a platted lot, so there is no subdivision review that is associated with this project. This slide is really intended to highlight where this property is located. It has frontage along Crossgate Drive, but its proposed driveway to this property will be from the cul-de-sac, where that street transitions into Birdie Way, which is a private street within that planned development. Some of the key points of this project, this is in your staff report, but also want to highlight here in their discussion. This is a legacy plan development, so it was created prior to the current land development code. So there are some back and forth discussions about which codes apply. This project was reviewed under the applicable sections of the current 2025 Land Development Code. Use and density were not previously described for this particular lot, so that leaves it open to this discussion. It also sets the tone for what we are looking for at this project with the conversion of the base district from RM24 with a PD overlay to the R4 district with PD overlay. And so we'll get into that discussion a little bit with some of the density discussion. In the R4 district, it establishes a minimum and a maximum density range. You did not have that in the previous code. You just had the maximum amount of density. In this application, there was also a minimum density that had to be met. The project includes 200 units. Any more than 200 units would require a secondary access to this site. That was extremely difficult to meet. So the applicant revised their project, reduced the number of units to comply with that access requirement through the fire code. Use restrictions that are part of this overall development, if you look at the zoning map, it'll show as conditional zoning. That's because there are use restrictions that were associated with the entire development, and those dealt with the non-residential uses associated with the Jayhawk Club, so that there were allowed certain non-residential uses within that development, but they really are related in some way to the golf course and to amenities of development within the boundary of that planned development. And then off-street parking, just quickly, that was something that is governed under the Land Development Code, the current one, so parking is a little bit different than the previous project. This slide highlights the review criteria. These are also summarized in your staff report. I think it's pages 10, 11, and 12 that really hit those specific findings. Pages before that are addressing specific details of the proposed development. So, the zoning map, how this property fits in with the surrounding area. It is R4 with the PD overlay, which is an overlay district. The purple here is also legacy plan development that dates back to the 60s and 70s, where at that time a plan development was also an overlay district, and then there was a period of time where they were specific districts, and we'll go over that a little bit. You can see how this property outlined in blue fits in with the rest of the Jayhawk Club project, and this is that reference to those conditions about residential uses, office uses, eating and drinking establishment. These are use categories that are from the 2006 code, so that's why they look a little bit different than you would find them in the current zoning code. And then also a use that was permitted in this particular plan development was a hotel not to exceed more than 24 guest rooms. And that's not a use that has been proposed in any of the more recent applications. So, surrounding land use, again, sorry. Obviously, you have a little glitch here. So this blue line was supposed to outline this property. This is just showing kind of the land use categories where we have generally single family. This is the way it's categorized in the appraisal, so it's a little bit different if you have actually 2-unit attached housing. That would be a classification in the zoning code that doesn't always necessarily reflect in the appraisers. So I tried to also provide an exhibit, which is this other slide, kind of trying to show where you have different housing units within this area. And I know this is hard to see on the slide, but if you have questions, we can definitely go ahead and talk about those things. So, this is just that highlight of the proposed development. It has multiple buildings within the long leg of the proposed project. This is the residential use. We also have proposed project amenity, which is the pool and clubhouse. The project shows a snack shack building, which is an amenity for the golf course, and then a maintenance building, which is also proposed on this property that would have access from the primary driveway into the project that would be supportive of golf course activities. In that legacy development plan, I thought this was important background information to share. The Alvamar development has a long history. It was originally created as a planned development. The Jayhawk Club, that middle piece of it, is a piece that was kind of pulled out of that original plan development and created as a standalone zoning district because it was done at that time. It was done under the 2006 code where plan developments were, again, kind of this overlay district. That interim time in the 80s and 90s, plan developments were their own unique zoning district. They had their own set of uses, their own set of standards, setbacks, height, those kinds of components. So we don't have to worry about that for this project, but this is the timeline of how those development plans react and the different zoning codes that we have to look at as we look at these projects. Residential density. This is something a little bit different in the Land Development Code in how it's calculated. There is a net density, and that net density is based on pulling out certain dedicated areas for open space, also for utility easements. So that's a little bit different, so that we get to what is really the developable part of this property. And then, as I mentioned, this project also has a minimum density that it has to hit based on that R4 zoning district, which is 16 dwelling units per acre. So we worked with the applicant. They provided the necessary analysis to demonstrate that they are meeting that. They're at 16.2 dwelling units per acre. Comparatively, I did a similar analysis, not exact, but similar to the two phases that are at the north end of the Jayhawk project. And those two projects, the first phase, which is on the west side of the private street, is about 22 dwelling units per acre, and the project on the east side is about 20 units per acre. Now, there are also smaller pieces of ground, so that has the effect of condensing that development. Other uses that I mentioned are proposed are the maintenance building. It will have 2 levels. The applicant can speak to this a little bit, how that is oriented. It is within the development where they can get to all sides of this project. The snack shack, which will also be part of the golf course, so there will be some other work with the golf cart path through there. That's not exact in the preliminary development plan at this time. Staff has asked for more information, so that becomes available, and we'll be looking at how those things tie back and forth between the golf course and the subject property. And then the pool clubhouse use for use by the residents. So in the previous development, not only did you have to have a certain amount of open space, so a certain amount of that open space had to also be recreational open space. That is not a design criteria that is in the current code. There's a kind of a smaller proportion that is required to be open space, but the code does not dictate how that open space shall be provided. It's very common and typical to see pools and clubhouse buildings, sports courts, those kinds of amenities included specifically for the apartment users. That's not to say that they couldn't also access the larger facilities of the Jayhawk Club project. Okay. 3 studies. I'm just going to briefly comment on these. We do have city engineers with us this evening if you have specific questions about these studies, but because there's been a lot of commentary and a lot of questions, I wanted to just cover them very quickly and a very high level. The traffic study, this is a required study with the project. The traffic counts were conducted in April when schools and university classes were in session. The study itself says that I think it's a June or July date on the cover sheet. That's because that's when all of this started to be submitted. But the study itself is based on the analysis that went in, work that was done before that date that was submitted. Birdie Way is a private street. Some of the comments that we heard about people using the angled parking and backing in. As a private street, it is not managed the way our public streets are. So the traffic study did identify some recommendations for traffic in this area that talked about signage, adding additional traffic calming devices. So some of this would potentially be out of the boundary of the specific project, either on a Congressional Drive or on Birdie Way. So you'll see reflected in the staff report references to providing exhibits for those other off-site improvements. And then regarding the Bishop Seabury Academy backup, and I've driven by and seen this as well. It's very popular, very busy. There's a lot of perhaps maybe young or new drivers, maybe not necessarily following all of the rules. So the traffic study did also recommend some additional signage and pavement marking to really bring a driver's attention to not block public streets and intersections. Overall, the traffic study was reviewed, it was approved, and it meets the city's requirements for a traffic study. Utility connections were also a component of the discussion of the review. Water utility will be extended from Crossgate Drive, but there is a requirement for redundancy of that system. And so the current design is to bring another water line connection from Alvamar Drive through existing public utility easements. This would have the benefit of actually providing some redundancy for the subdivision that is along Alvamar Drive, as well as redundancy in this area. Those public improvements, those utility analyses, they are specific engineering requirements that will come with a set of public improvement plans that's not for this body to really have to evaluate or make a decision on. Those are engineering requirements that will be reviewed by city engineers, and they're going to have to meet, the applicant will have to meet those city design criterias. The last one is a drainage study. This is just a quick graphic from that drainage study where it shows detention. This is actually on the subject property, but there's also some detention improvement off-site. The study was reviewed and approved with some conditions, and those are also reflected in staff's recommendation. So, to conclude, in the review of this project, in review of the requirements of the plan development and the existing zoning and land use entitlements that this property does have, the project is compliant with city code. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary development plan, and there were those conditions that I mentioned. All of these conditions are really very technical in nature and intended to provide additional improvements as well as exhibits to help explain some things that are going on. This is a preliminary development plan. Procedurally, this body would approve a recommendation for the preliminary development plan. Your recommendation gets forwarded to the City Commission, who will make the final determination on that. The applicant would then submit a final development plan for review, and that is an administrative review. Before they can pull a building permit, they will have to complete that final development plan, and they will have to complete a set of public improvement plans before they can start pulling building permits. As I said, I'm here. City engineers are here that can speak to any of the specific study questions you may have, and then the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for staff before we move into presentation by the applicant and then public comment? Does anyone have a question they want to ask first? Seeing none, we'll move into presentations then. Would the applicant like to present to the commission this evening?
Good evening. My name is Lance Adams. I'm with Adams Architects, and I'll be speaking more towards the buildings for the project and through some of the planning process. We also have our civil engineer here as well, who can get into more of the technical of the drainage studies and items like that. This project was originally discussed and at the city level about mid-April, which we all know that's about the time that the new development code started. It's been a great learning process between my staff and city staff on how the new planning code is applied to plan developments. And I think Sandy did a nice job laying out all the different levels and layers of city history on plan developments. Working through that, we've been through the review process basically since April. So this is our first time finally coming before you. So we have been working with staff for months and months and months on this project, sorting through comments from the neighbors, which you've seen. We had a outreach meeting, which we even had to determine when that occurred, before or after we submitted. There were lots of things like that, but that was done in April as well. So like I said, this project's been going on a long time, and so the neighbors should be aware of what's been happening. We've posted signs, everybody's received outreach meetings, and then also there's another 400-foot mailing that goes out as well for site planning items. So we've gone through those. We've looked at, initially, as Sandy said, this piece of property was zoned at PD RM 24, which basically said you can build between 0 and 24 units per acre on this site. And that's what had been agreed on 2013, 2015, sometime in that area. With the new change in April and that change to the R4, as Sandy pointed out, R4 sets a minimum and a maximum. And she did talk about the minimum of 16 units per acre. The maximum on that is 32, which is quite a bit more than the 24 that was allowed and way more than the 16.2 that we placed in there. Now, the 16.2 that Sandy showed you was based on new calculations that we can do for a site to remove acreage based on easements and all sorts of items. So if you ran it, the unit counts, the way that you would run an RM24, you would be looking at 11 units per acre. So this development has come in with a lot less units than what's actually allowed into that space, right? So there's been a lot of work with the developer on size-wise and what can be used in the area. The discussion on 200 units for one access road, that is a 2018 fire code item. But with that comes other items for that exception, and it's a international fire code exception, and it's not a City of Lawrence exception. So this is not some deal made somewhere, something going on. This is an exception in the fire code, and we have to sprinkle every building, every apartment building, the clubhouse, and the maintenance building have to additionally have fire suppression systems in them to allow this one access point, and that's an exception written into the code. So those items that we kind of looked at, we want to make sure that people understand that when we're looking at these, and that we know that we're going in with as few units to meet both the old code and the new code for what's allowed that was decided in 2017. And then the one access point as well is something set out by the 2018 International Fire Code on those items. So are there any other questions architecturally I can answer?
I think at the moment we will come back to with any questions that we have for you after we hear public comment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay. With that, we will turn to public comment. So at this time, we will take public comment on this item. Everyone is entitled to 3 minutes. So if you just come up, and we prefer you to state your name just so we know who you are, though we're not required to, but it's nice to know who you are. And so if you would like to just come up to the podium, you have 3 minutes to speak to this item. Commissioner Munch, before we get started, can you angle the clock a little so that I can see it?
Oh, yeah. All right, certainly.
Oh, not that much. They can see it too.
Good.
I think that's good. Thank you very much. And so I'll try to wave a little if you go over the 3 minutes, but the clock will be there for you as well, so keep your time. So please come to the podium if you'd like to speak to this. Yep.
May it please the members of the commission. My name is Charles Aaron, A-R-O-N. I am an attorney. I'm licensed and practice a number of places, but I'm not licensed in Kansas. I want to emphasize that I'm not representing anyone except myself and my wife, as landowners. We live on the side of the fairway that is shown on the drawings. If you turn to page 21 of the materials that are provided online, that show, actually 21 or 23, page 23 is probably the best. Our property is just about across the fairway from the lots that are designated as D and E on the proposed construction. And the reason I'm here is to suggest or request of the committee, the commission, that any recommendation to the city include the requirement that the developer either changes the plan to remove that particular fairway and the fairway on the east side of the proposed buildings for two reasons. First of all, the way they appear now, and it could be an innocent mistake, I'm not saying it's necessarily a falsification, but it's a complete misrepresentation, because nobody is going to have a golf course. Those fairways cannot be used for golf. And it is also a very significant safety issue, because it would be dangerous to the people living in those buildings. And I'll explain why. If you look where our property is, we're actually at 1908 Crossgate, as I said, just about due west of D&E. We have quite a few golf balls occasionally come into our yard, which is much farther away from that fairway than these buildings. And in fact, sometimes golf balls go up on a roof or even over the building. And I can guarantee you that unless you're talking about a PGA caliber golfer, nobody is going to hit a golf ball with a row of buildings that not only are next to the fairway, but if you look at the other side, which is the proposed fairway that's on the east side, that the building plan goes actually out onto the fairway. So it is never going to happen. They're not going to be playing golf there, if so, for long, not for long. And I would just ask that, is my time up? Well, I just ask that some recommendation be made, or it be covenanted that if they stop playing golf, which they will, that they must make that into a natural area.
Thank you. And I want to apologize in advance. If you run over the 3 minutes, I will probably have to interrupt you. I just want to apologize ahead of time. Anyone else here to speak to this?
Hello, my name is Susan Tabor, and I'm going to talk about water drainage problems. My husband Steve and I have lived in a townhouse at 1900 Crossgate for the last 6 years, and our next door neighbor is in the townhouse at 1902 is Jody Cox. Often when there is a heavy rain, the water rushes down from the golf course and into our backyards. Last July, it even covered Jody's back patio and nearly went into her house. And I think it's number 6 on that PowerPoint, the picture. There's a PowerPoint that I guess Kirk or someone has.
Kurt, do we have a PowerPoint for public comment?
Is it the one that's called Alvamar or the one that says Judy Cox?
Alvamar.
Okay, very good. So you're number 6?
Yeah. I'm going to have about 5 of them when I talk. I should have mentioned that.
Okay, now it's on the screen in front of you, and you have control now.
You can, where's the mouse?
Oh, I can do it?
Yes.
Do it,
Oh,
okay.
nice. That's even better. Okay. So, okay, don't count that time against me.
He stopped the clock when we were working on that.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know where she was clicking. Where do you click on? Sorry.
The arrow keys at the bottom, use the right and left to go forward or back.
Down
See
here.
these, or you can use these arrow keys.
Okay. All right, I'll use these. Okay, all right. So, yeah, last July it rained so hard the water just rushed over that wall and covered Jody's back patio. And there it is. Went up almost to her doors. So we have tried various water mitigation efforts. In 2020, we had a swale put in the backyard. I don't remember how much it cost, but it was not cheap. It redirects some of the water running off the golf course away from our house during heavy rains, but not all. And there, the swale is up in the back there, but the water still, as you see, comes down pretty close to the driveway. This past July, there was a big storm, and the water from the golf course came right up the edge to our back patio. There. That was the same storm when Jody's back patio was underwater. In August of last year, a portion of the retaining wall in her backyard collapsed due to heavy runoff from the golf course. There it is. And then it cost her $39,000 to have that wall replaced with the stone wall. Oops. There. So we are very concerned that an 18-building apartment complex plus its parking lots and roads will greatly increase the water runoff and drainage problems in the adjacent neighborhoods. The Jayhawk Club currently does not seem to be managing their water drainage very well. So we are asking the city to make sure that they have a good plan in place for stormwater and drainage management before any permits are issued. So thank you for your time and consideration of how the proposed development plan would affect our homes in this neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Allison Long, and I also am concerned about the drainage issues. I represent the neighborhood of Quail Creek Court. So our homes that are on the south side of that have been impacted very similarly to that. We have a swimming pool, and one summer we had water drainage into our pool 6 different times where we've had to drain the pool, refill it each time at considerable expense. I believe we've mitigated a lot of the issues, as have some of our neighbors as well, but we've spent a lot of money in French drains, building swells, redirecting water, working with our neighbors to do a lot of things. So again, I think this was a result of previous work on the past part of the Jayhawk Club and not managing the water off of that renovation over the last 5 or 6 years, but do have concerns because I don't hear really a lot of details about the drainage in this plan as to what is going to be happening when we put that much more concrete on top of the hill again, and where is that water going to go. So not only does it go to Crossgate, it also comes down the hill to Quail Creek Court and the people that are on the south side of that street, and it has impacted there's probably 5 or 6 homes along that way. So I just wanted to tag on that just as a part of the same conversation and concern about drainage issues. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ted Juneau. I live at 2008 Greenbrier Drive. My backyard is adjacent to the golf course, what is now the 7th hole of Jayhawk Club, which originally was the first hole when it was Alvamar, if that helps anybody. we too have great water problems that no one seems to. We have French drains, we've had berms. I've sent pictures to the city, but I didn't bring anything today, but I can assure you, I've had knee-deep water coming down the side of my house, into my house, everything else. Have asked people there, have not really gotten any help. But really what I'm worried about a little bit, as you discuss plopping that complex in the middle of what was a golf course, is the lack of infrastructure. The amount of traffic that goes through Crossgate was never planned. Crossgate, I don't think, was ever planned to be that farewell. That Bishop Seabury was not there. Obviously, you know, people take Bob Billings Way and shortcut to Bishop Seabury. There's a tremendous amount of traffic in the summers with the swimming pool, the crowded parking lots, the wellness center. It really is a chaotic situation at times, and I can't imagine with one entrance into that complex how safe that can be. The maintenance shed, as planned, will be using that. They will be very slow as they bring their material, their carts, their equipment. I don't see how, you know, traffic can flow from that one ingress, egress, you know, regress. The other thing that I think, you know, I worry about is the amount of traffic, but not only traffic, but Crossgate, if you've been on that lately, there are chunks of asphalt that's been ripped up. The street is sinking in some areas. Now, it's heavy, the only way I see getting heavy equipment to the development is up through Crossgate. And I don't think that road can stand it. And I think you're going to have to repair it before and maybe after, if you look at that. And I am concerned about that. Never in my dreams, as I lived there for 37 years, as they abandoned what was the 9th hole, did I think that something like this would be built there. But you know, they've abandoned the 1st hole, the 2nd hole, the 3rd hole, the 4th hole, the 5th hole, the 6th hole, and the 7th hole on the other side of the golf course. And I don't know what plans are for that, and I don't know what this decision, how that weighs on the next decisions. But I do think that is something that people should think about.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jody Cox, and I also live in the neighborhood on Crossgate. I bought my home in June of 2021, and I'm going to talk about also the underwater springs that are in our area, and the area that they're going to talk about buildings. So. In 21, there was a very rainy season. I noticed along my south side of my grass that it was always kind of wet and muddy, and it never dried up. And so I figured, I have a French drain that goes down the side of that driveway, that it probably had been damaged. So I spent $3,700 to get that checked over, and it didn't quite work. The water still ran down. So we made a little garden kind of a thing with rocks and plants. And so that didn't work too great. There was still water in the middle at the end there, but it just keeps getting worse. So let's see if I can get it. Oh, there it is. So I just click on it here. Oh, there it is. Okay. That is a picture of the sidewalk that it happens with the water runs down from, of course, the golf course down into the sidewalk off in Crossgate. So it's very dangerous for people walking and running on that, and I have put orange cones down and tried the best to get it fixed. So let's see, I can go to the next one, just click it. Oops, oh, this is a video. Okay, yeah, you can see it's a going there, so.
I think if you click yeah.
Okay, got that. This is a picture of what the water going down that sidewalk and the curb, what it's done. So there's a lot of, like Ted said, loose rocks and cracks. And the city does try to fix them, and they're fixing them very often already. So, you know, it's just going to be worse when this happens, if it does. There shows our driveway that also was also getting covered with water and going down the street in the winter. We have ice that goes down there in our driveway and the road, and they have to come and try to chunk it out. I had a 4-inch piece of ice coming down my driveway and the sidewalk going to the south. So it wasn't good at all for safety. This is showing.
Thank you.
Oh, no.
So, I know, it's fast. It goes very fast. Thank you.
Okay, can I just show, this is the retention pond, and I really got to show this one.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask.
Spring.
I'm going to have to ask you
Okay.
to keep to 3 minutes.
I should have checked the time.
Okay. Kurt does have the PowerPoint if somebody else wants to use that PowerPoint for public comment.
Good evening. My name's Sandy Prager. My husband and I live 2 doors down from Allison and Jeff Long on Quail Creek Court. And when the golf course was redesigned here a few years ago, we did see an increase in runoff drainage, which we've had to address. I think we've solved the problem. I hope it doesn't increase with the new development. So our concern is just expressing caution about the proposed site plan and the appropriate drainage that is going to be accommodated by the site plan and the development. We spent a lot of time and effort and money to address the concerns. We feel like we've addressed them, and we don't want them to increase again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Baston. Let's see here. I'm going to express my support for the approval of the preliminary development plan. This proposed development offers significant benefits to the city of Lawrence, particularly in addressing the critical housing shortage, in enhancing community safety and well-being, and providing fiscal advantages that can alleviate the tax burden for residents. I've outlined a few of them. I did send some things to you guys for further look. Lawrence is in urgent need of diverse housing options, particularly for single individuals and small families who work nearby and seek safe, high-quality residence. The project supports the city's strategic goals of fostering strong, welcoming neighborhoods by creating a high-density residential community that integrates seamlessly with existing amenities like the golf course and the wellness center. This development enhances livability and accessibility, making it an ideal location for Lawrence's housing landscape. This development aligns with Plan 2040's encouragement for infill development, maximizing residential capacity to meet housing demands while preserving 58.8% of the site as pervious area. The project aligns with 2025 Land Development Code. Approved drainage and sanitary sewer studies are confirmed, and that is a big concern of everybody's. And I don't know if everybody realizes that when you have a parking lot or plans like this, it has to go into stormwater. It can't just be poured out into the surrounding area. This project also imposes no direct financial burden to the city. Furthermore, it's expected to generate at least $500,000 in property tax revenue from the 2,000 new residential units. And this was used off of the 1575 Birdie Way apartments, just as an estimate. And I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Hi, Nick Wood, 2004 Crossgate Drive. I share all the same concerns that everybody else has spoken about, except for one of us there. But I'm going to speak to the traffic. I know they discussed the traffic earlier, the traffic study, the traffic report, traffic study. I'm curious of the variables that were in play. Like, did it happen on a Monday when the golf course isn't open? I know I talked about public schools being open, the university being open, but Bishop Seabury is a private school. Was Seabury open that day? I think Ted talked about the the summer months as well, when the pool, people are there visiting the pool. If you've not driven through Birdie Way, Crossgate, I would suggest go ahead and do it. Give it a shot multiple times. Do it at different times of the day. Do it at between 7:50 and 8 o'clock when parents are dropping off their kids at Seabury. Do it at 2:50, 3 o'clock, just multiple times. It is, I've said it before in some other meetings, as you go through Birdie Way and you get on the Crossgate, it's like a scene out of Mad Max at times, just trying to navigate your way through that road. I grew up on Greenbrier in 1988, so I'm very familiar with the area, and I've seen what it was and seen what it is now. My concern is for the safety of the community. Somebody's gonna get hurt. It's just not safe to drive on it. And if you add 200 to 300 more vehicles going on that road, I have a lot of concerns for the kids that are driving to Seabury, the parents that are there, people driving to and from the pool, just golfers. It's a lot of blind spots. Where we're at on 2004 Crossgate, there's a little hill. I think Ted talked about the roads having some issues. There's just a lot of blind areas. I don't think that road was designed for heavy traffic going through that. So I would just advise you guys to take that part into consideration amongst the rest of the stuff we have. So thank you for your time. We'll see you later.
Thank you. At this point, we'll look online. Becky, is there anyone online? I don't want to ignore people who maybe want to participate online.
Yes, it does appear. I think that's Scott?
Yes,
Yep.
Scott Robinson. Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, it's lighting up green, so that's a good thing. Thank you. Scott Robinson, 4210 Nicholas Drive. I've got many concerns regarding the proposed Jayhawk Club Lot 5 apartment complex, which is to include 17 three-story apartment buildings, as well as a clubhouse sandwiched between two existing golf holes and directly adjacent to existing homes. It will have no semblance of continuity or likeness to the surrounding neighbors or green space, which is in stark contrast to the newly developed Land Development Code, which prohibits such blatant construction. The high-density zoning given to this area was quietly approved via the City Commission's consent agenda in 2017 after the Commission essentially rejected the very same proposal made by Paul Warner in 2016 on behalf of Thomas Frissell and Eagle 1968 LLC. I forwarded a video of this meeting for your viewing if you have the time. The high-density zoning request in 2016 was for 2 high-density apartment complexes to be built on what was the 10th fairway of Albemarle Private and the driving range of Albemarle Public, all within the PUD long established as a golf course community. This was only considered during the 2016 commission meeting if Eagle 1968 would agree in writing to limit the high-density development to the 2 apartment complexes being discussed. Furthermore, the proposed revenue from these 2 high-density developments was to support the golf course. The Albemarle 9 has essentially been shut down and is now basically a dead wasteland of erosion and drainage problems. Further concerns, the plan calls for I just heard 200 apartment complex with about 300 parking spaces and approximately 600 bedrooms. All this density flows into one small single-lane road that empties into the parking lot of the Jayhawk Club Fitness Center and swimming pool, putting young children at risk due to the simple volume of traffic that would be sharing this limited space. Furthermore, single road access to this high-density population with regard to EMS and fire service is unacceptable. I heard that this meets some criteria, but if you think about this, if anything compromises that access road, EMS and fire can't get in there, and it's just unacceptable. Stormwater issues have not been adequately addressed, although it sounds like they have per the reports, but I have big questions about that because there are problems right now. Finally, the traffic volume onto Crossgate and more worrisome Birdie Way, with the 300 plus cars that would be present in the apartment complex, would simply overwhelm Crossgate Road, which is at best is a narrow 4-speed bump access road. In summary, not only was the initial request for high-density zoning within this PUD misrepresented and mysteriously passed on a consent agenda with the City Commission, but the 17-3 apartment building proposed in no way reflects the adjacent single-family and duplex housing in existence, which is in direct conflict with the recent land development code.
Thank you.
Stormwater, traffic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online? We'll come back to the room for public comment, and then we'll go back online to check to see if anyone shows up. So.
Attempt to time myself here.
I'm not that mean. I say thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Paul Davis. I live at 1577 Albemarle Drive. I have a little bit of a history with this project. As some of you know, I'm an attorney, and I'm not here in that capacity tonight. But when the project was initiated back in, I think, 2015, 2016, I represented the 2 homeowners association that were on the old Crossgate Drive. And we negotiated the new road that is now Birdie Way. And I dealt extensively with Mr. Fritzl during that process, and he was great to deal with. He understood the concerns when we pointed them out, and as I said, we negotiated that new road. I got to see some of this as it unfolded, though, during that process, and really what was happening is the Albemarle owners wanted to sell the club, and they needed somebody who was going to buy the club, and all of the adjacent owners of the property were very interested in this, obviously, and Mr. Fritzl had sort of laid out the plans for what he wanted to do, and I think people understood that nobody likes to have apartments necessarily nearby them when you're living in single-family housing in neighborhoods, but they understood that that was going to be a necessity if the club was going to be preserved. But if you look at the plans that were offered at that point in time, the apartments were to be to the north side of the clubhouse, and then to the south side of the clubhouse, because you had more residences there. That was supposed to be either residential or low density. So we're really kind of, I think, moving away from what the original plans were and what people were expecting. The second point I just wanted to emphasize, I hope you will all take a very, very close look at that intersection in the entrance to these apartments. It sits right at the top of the hill. People moving out of there are not going to be able to see the cars that are coming up that hill, nor can they see the cars very well coming to the right side because they're coming around a very steep curve. And in between all of that, you have traffic that is going to the club. You have golf carts, because everybody who plays a round of golf there has to cross that street twice in a golf cart. I think it's, to say that there are going to be more than a number of accidents may be an understatement there. I think it's going to be a very dangerous situation. The entrance really should probably be at the bottom of the hill on Crossgate, so that you've got a line of sight both ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Sarah Dreiling. I live at 2004 Crossgate. I want to preface my comments with an understanding that we know the subject property is zoned for higher density, and to that end, we are not expecting to change that in any way. What we are hoping to do here is to effect meaningful change to the current proposal that addresses what we as a community see as glaring concerns regarding safety, traffic, walking paths, access, drainage, water management, stormwater, and aesthetics. The community has shared their concerns related to those issues. I share those concerns. What I'd like to focus my time on is to more closely examine if high-density apartments are the best and highest use of this property, or since Lawrence leadership has focused on affordable housing and a lack of properties available for people to purchase, might we shift gears? There's an incredible need and, quite frankly, a desire for community members to own and invest in our town. The best way to encourage engagement in and care of what happens within this city is to increase opportunities for people to own their own space. As a native Lawrencian and real estate agent for nearly 20 years, I feel uniquely qualified to speak to the need for owner-occupied, high-density options. The original intent of this land when the golf course was purchased by the applicant was for owner-occupied development. Yet here we are discussing a third apartment complex. This centrally located piece of ground would be incredibly attractive to a wide variety of buyers. Why is the only option being considered yet another giant rental complex that will be sold to a non-local entity to run and operate? There's absolutely a need and desire for condos here in Lawrence. There are only 4 currently existing: the Bellicera Lofts, the Hobbs-Taylor Lofts. They cater to a high-end purchaser. The last Bellicera condo sold for $700,000, which was a whopping $70,000 over the asking price less than a month ago. That's double the average cost of a home here in Lawrence. A newer condo building downtown and the Emery condos that were converted from apartments to condo projects were wildly successful. 55 units just sold in less than 5 months. So if the community wants to focus on higher density housing, why aren't we exploring an opportunity to add 200 units for individual sale instead of for rent? In the middle of a prestigious and beautiful golf course, shouldn't we work together with the applicant to find a solution that solves a handful of issues that the city and the neighboring property owners have? Paul Davis, I got 30 seconds. I heard that.
And she gets those seconds back.
Thank you, Ms. Owner occupants who live and own their properties bring a greater sense of community, property stability, and civic engagement to a neighborhood than renters. While both groups are vital to a community, the difference in the financial stake and residential stability leads to significant contributions. Community and stability, greater civic involvement, stronger neighborhood networks, more neighborhood stability in terms of property maintenance and value, higher maintenance standards, as well as responsibility for repairs and property value preservation. So I think if we allow this to be a complex that could be sold instead of rented, we solve a lot of issues and we help navigate the neighborhood concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on this evening?
Dakota Loomis, 2000 Crossgate. I share many of the same concerns that people have raised today. I also share Mr. Baston's belief that Lawrence does need more housing, affordable housing, more building in general. But the attention I'd like to draw to in this issue is about how and where this housing is going to be built and its lack of access. We have a single access point, no access to any sort of transportation. It's located off of a parking lot, off of a private road, off of a single lane access road, opposed to where you see most complexes built in Lawrence, off of main arteries with access to bus routes, with access within walking distance to KU, within walking distance to downtown Lawrence. So this complex is an anomaly. It's an anomaly that the only other complexes in Lawrence that I can find that are similar to these are the two complexes to the north of the Jayhawk Club that were built as part of the, as was discussed earlier, agreement to build density to the north of the Jayhawk Club in an effort to save the golf course, with the understanding that the south portion of that complex would be developed for either lower density or in keeping with the neighborhood itself. So we also have issues regarding the infrastructure leading to this planned development. Crossgate at current is sinking, it is disintegrating. There will be a cost to the city if we put 300 cars into that location based upon the access through Crossgate from 23rd Street. That road will need to be replaced at a much quicker rate if it is those apartments are approved. So there will not be zero impact to the community. There will be an impact to taxpayers based upon the fact that Crossgate will need to be patched or replaced totally before long based upon its current deteriorating state. The water coming off of that has led to that deterioration. It's also led, I think, to concerns with homeowners that are understandable given the circumstances. The largest concern that I see here for the water drainage is that, having spoken to former planning commissioners, former and current engineers, that the retention ponds that are currently proposed are not sufficient given the high volume of water that may be coming to that project. Additionally, although the area itself is roughly 17 acres, the location of these properties is really over a small strip of that will be completely blocked from north to the south, covered with nothing but concrete from the entryway down to the southern point of the development. There's a eastern wing that will have zero, it's a conservation area, cannot be built upon, and therefore I think also it's a little disingenuous to take that into consideration given the circumstances. So those are all the concerns I have for this project. I ask the city to take those into consideration and make recommendations to modify those to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others in the room here tonight to speak to this? We will look online, and then I will come back and ask for in-person one more time, and then we will move on. Is there anyone online, Becky?
I'm not seeing anyone online that's turned on their camera or used their raised hand function to indicate that they'd like to speak.
Okay. So anyone in the room like to speak to this evening? If not, we will close public comment. Okay, we will close public comment. At this point, we will open it up to the applicant to respond to public comment if the applicant would like to do so.
Once again, Lance Adams, Adams Architects. I'll start off, and then we'll have Chris Storm come in and can speak for the civil engineering parts and pieces.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. We have heard the neighborhood's concerns all the way starting from the outreach meeting we did early on. And I think you'll see that in the drainage study we've done, in the grading plans we've done, in the approved grading plans that we've done through the city engineers on how we are sloping the sites away from Crossgate to a retention pond that we have on site. those items have been addressed. It was funny for Paul Davis to point out a drive on Crossgate, right at the end of Crossgate. We looked at that, unfortunately. But we did look at that when we were looking at 2-point accesses for this lot. We determined that it was not fair to the neighbors to have a drive as close as we could for a setback against their piece of property. So that was part of the decision-making of reducing that amount of units to go to that one lane so that we weren't putting drives up against neighbors' properties. So that's been part of the drive on that. For other items, I'll let Chris talk more technical on the drainage studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Chris Storm with Storm Engineering. I did prepare the drain study and the downstream sewer analysis for this project. I've worked on the grading plans and coordinating with the city on the infrastructure. If there's any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. I do understand there's a lot of stuff going around this project, and I've read through all the comments about concerns about drainage. One thing I would point out is when we talk stormwater, we're talking about surface flow and everything like that. When we talk about underground water, that's something that's not managed by the city of Lawrence, and that would be difficult to do, but we can also talk about that too, and if there's something we can do to help, we're open to look at that. But I did not work on the traffic study, so if there's specific questions about that, I can do my best to answer them, but I did not prepare that. I did bring some notes on it, but I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring it back to the commission for discussion, but if we have questions for you, we will bring you back. So I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion. Yeah, question Vor.
So just there's a lot of comments about water tonight. Sandy, how much of the problem, the existing problem that we've heard about, is the city responsible for mitigating, or is it who's responsible for mitigating the concerns raised by residents tonight?
Kyle Gonterwitz is here, and I'm going to let him respond to some of that. But first and foremost, anytime we get a complaint, the city will investigate to do its best to respond to what the situation is occurring and happening. So I think some of these have been existing problems across the golf course. The city has gotten engaged with some of those. As Chris Storm mentioned, I don't know of any activity that the city has taken regarding the underground water situation. That's something that's been reported to the city since I've been here, I think. So.
I'm Kyle Gonterwitz. I'm an engineering program manager with the city, and I think Sandy covered that question pretty well. For the most part, stormwater drainage on private property is the private property's responsibility. Stormwater drainage in the enclosed system or in city-owned property would be the responsibility of the city to maintain and operate. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand, like the complaints raised tonight, would the city be responsible for fixing the complaints? I mean, I know there's the underwater issue, but like as far as surface water, is that the city's responsibility, or is that the developer that should be taking care of that?
It's on the developer and the private property owners, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Gary?
Yes, hey, thanks. Hey, Kyle, let me bring you back up for just a minute if we could.
Kyle, come on back. Sorry.
Good. Yeah, I want to click in a little bit into the questions of stormwater. At first, just did you review this plan, the stormwater plan, the grading plan?
Yes.
And on that review, have you found that to be adequate, sufficient?
I reviewed it, and we met with Chris Storm, and we talked about it. I think it is, there's a lot of work to be done, especially in the public improvement plans. And talking with Chris, he agreed to include private stormwater in the public improvement plan so that we could look at that. But I think on a preliminary development plan, at this preliminary state, we don't expect there to be 100% developed plans with every pipe sized and every detention outflow completely designed. So there are I have a lot of conditions that went along with that development, and I think Sandy pointed out some of those in her presentation. But that's, here we are tonight, and this is what you see is what I've reviewed.
Right. Have you met with the neighbors who showed up tonight and have sent mail and information about the previous adjustments to the golf course and what that's done to their homes? Have you been out on site to see what the current conditions are?
I have, yes.
Right. And
I haven't met with. I should say I haven't met with everybody who's been here. I have met with some people, and I have been out on the site to clarify that.
Right, I understand that. I'm trying to get at, you've actually been, the conditions that these folks are representing. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at a stormwater management plan, and now you've been out to see what it's doing to the neighbors, how confident are you in the ability of this developer to fully mitigate the issues, not just what might come from these changes, but that are going on right now?
I can just look at this plan, and I have to look at it for what it is, for a development plan within the platted area that's already been platted and has zoning on it. I don't expect this development to mitigate everybody's problems. I understand that there's groundwater discharge from the golf course site, and I would say that I think that the drainage plan will include detention, and it will channel all the paved area to those detention ponds. So that should reduce some of the discharge that is going into people's backyards to some degree. But I don't have all the details of that yet, and I don't expect everybody's problems to be mitigated around the golf course, unfortunately.
Wouldn't it be a fair ask for someone who lives next to a development that we're contemplating approval of that no harm be done to them, and that existing harm that's going on that for whatever reason the applicant has been unable or unwilling to correct? Isn't it fair to give them some assurance that we can mitigate those problems?
I think not only is that fair, but it's in our city development code under stormwater to have no adverse impact on any adjacent property.
All right, so I'm trying to square, understanding that, I'm trying to square the last comment. We may not be able to do that. So I just want to get at that. So let me move on to one more question, if I can. Can you help me understand I understand what surface water is and what underground water is, but what percentage of the issues that currently exist are this underground flow, this spring flow? Where is that coming from? Is that generated on the course as a part of how it is, this pervious soil is managing water that hits it and moving off underground? Or help me understand the mechanics of what's going on there.
Oh, that's a good question. I'd like to understand that better myself. Maybe we can get some geotech exploration with the public improvement plans. I have noticed going onto the site that it is, even though it's at the top of the hill and on a dry day, it's wet. And I don't know. I think there has been more groundwater issues in Northwest Lawrence lately that I've received calls about. So I don't know if there's something going on there, but I think that is it's a tough question to answer right now at this preliminary development phase.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Kyle. Hey, Chelsea, can I just continue on this thread just one more second and ask Chris Storm to to come up and address what his understanding is of surface water versus underground water. He made a comment that underground water may not be in his purview. And I just want to understand what the developer's sense of responsibility is for this problem.
Yes, please, Chris.
So, first of all, when we say groundwater, to me, that's water that's infiltrated through pervious area, hits like a rock ledge or something like that, which Lawrence has a lot of rock out there that's underneath all the soil. That water goes down into the ground. Some of it runs off immediately, some of it's absorbed by the ground. That water goes down to a point where it can't go down anymore and then runs, I'm going to say, let's call it downhill, or with the gradient of gravity that it goes down. The houses along Crossgate are lower than this project site. This project site, Lot 5, is along a ridge line. Right now, currently, and if we had the grading plan up, I'd show you kind of what's going on with the drainage, but along the center of it, Lot 5, it currently breaks to the east and to the west. With our project, the way we've set it up to grade is we're not sending any developed flow to the west. We're taking all that stormwater runoff from the impervious, the parking, the buildings and all that, collecting it, not letting it run off our site, but collecting it and then discharging it to the stormwater detention pond. That stormwater detention pond meters the water out slower than it comes in. And to give kind of, these are rough numbers, easy numbers for everybody to picture in their head. But if we were to say the developed area, and I'm going to say asterisk on this because there is a portion, if Lot 5 was a T, the upper portion on the west end drains to the west and there's another detention pond. But let's call it the east part of the T and the main line north-south all drain to the east. If that developed flow, being fully developed in a 100-year storm, was 80 cubic feet a second of water. So think of it, 80 cubic feet a second of water is coming off of that developed site. Under existing conditions, that number's 55. That detention pond is taking that to 30 and discharging out the pipe. So there's the proposed, there's the existing, and then there's what the detention pond is discharging. Does that make sense? Kind of in rough numbers. So back to your question about underground water, there's nothing that is done public improvement-wise, except for like when I see the pictures of the water running across the sidewalk, and I've seen it, like the moss starts to grow on it, it's slick, ice, all that stuff. What we would typically do nowadays when we build, we have to replace the sidewalk along Crossgate for Lot 5. That's part of the public improvement plans that we're doing. Because currently it's a 4-foot, needs to be 5-foot. So we're ripping all that sidewalk out and putting new 5-foot sidewalk in. When we do that, what we'll do is an underdrain that runs along that whole entire sidewalk that captures all the groundwater that's coming towards the sidewalk and discharges it to the curb inlets along the road instead of popping, because usually when we build a sidewalk, we compact the soil underneath it, creates a dam, that water pops up and goes over the top of the sidewalk. So what we would do is catch it on the uphill side and discharge it through pipes connected to curb inlets.
I just want to ask a question for clarity. I don't know if it's for Sandy or for you, but when we're talking about groundwater, like I think about water coming up from the ground or from a source, a groundwater source.
It could be a spring, like I've seen in the email, springs, but all that is like a place where water's coming up.
But you were talking about water like coming down, hitting a ledge and having nowhere to go. So are we talking about like when it rains, water that is running? Is that what we're talking about, is the groundwater? Or are we talking about like groundwater as
let's just say for it rains an inch.
Okay, so it's the water that has come down and is stormwater runoff.
Depending, like on an impervious surface of that inch, 90% of it's going to run off.
Okay.
If we were talking a pervious surface, grass or something like that, we're talking like 40% would run off, 60% goes into the ground. Well, the ground can only, let's call it a sponge. It soaks and soaks and soaks, but it's also draining down. If it hits a rock ledge, that water has to move horizontally. It just can't go vertical anymore, unless it's creviced or something like that, fractured.
I just want to be, we're not talking about a spring that could be under, that's under this.
Well, I think one of the
let me ask Sandy, I just want to ask Sandy a question.
Yep.
Just so that I'm understanding what we're talking about, because I'm trying to figure out liability-wise, like who's responsible for what. So I was just.
So I don't know that this body needs to assess the liability component, whether or not there is a spring, or whether or not this water is traveling subsurface in some manner and is coming up at some weak point in that topography. Those are unknown without doing some significant geological testing. And so that is where Kyle Gonchowitz was talking about perhaps we can get some of the geotech information, geological technological information as part of that public improvement plan. We're looking at a preliminary development plan here. The applicant's responsibility is to provide a study that says, how are we going to do this? They can't make it any worse. If they can make it an improvement, we certainly will encourage them to do that to the maximum extent that the code allows. They have not done the final engineering, so they have a plan of how they are going to manage this situation. They have been in a lot of contact with me, with Kyle, with other city staff about this very issue. So it's something everybody is very cognizant of. The next step for the applicant, if they get the approval, is to move forward with the detailed engineering of exactly how this is going to happen. That's the public improvement plan. And that's where Kyle's saying, I'm interested in this. I want to see more detail. I will have to see more detail before they can finish. And that's part of what Chris Storm is talking to you about.
Thank you.
And that's what I prepare. I've been preparing these type of public improvement plans for 20 years in the city of Lawrence. So.
Great. Yeah.
Appreciate that. If I could just do one more question, Chelsea, and then I've got some other topics, but I'll let it go after this on water. If I could please ask for a clarification from one of the members of the public who spoke about water, Sandy Prager. She's still in the room. If it's okay, I'd like to ask a clarifying question. She had mentioned the issues of water coming into their neighborhood now. What I'm looking to understand is whether these issues have been there all along from the time that neighborhood was constructed, or did those problems begin or become worse as all of the new development of the new Jayhawk Club began?
Gary, Sandy has stepped out. She's not here. So there are other members of the public who think they can speak to it if you wanted to address another member of the public to speak to that. But Sandy has stepped out.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I think there was someone named Jody maybe who'd
Yes.
been a long resident there. I just have one question. I'm just trying to clarify. Sure. Is this a new thing or has this been there all along since
Jody, you can come to the podium. Yes.
Yes, it was there when I moved in, but it has gotten much worse. And what I really noticed, the last picture that I didn't get to show, was that they took out part of the woods that's beside our house. But I have the townhouse with the Tabors, 1900 and 1902. And then I noticed that golf course land, that as you go up the hill or as you're coming down from the Jayhawk Club and then it turns into Crossgate, now it's all muddy. And I know there's an underground spring there because it happened a few years ago. They had a big pool like this big.
Right, Jody, thank you very much. I appreciate that clarity. I thank you so much. Chelsea, thank you for allowing me to ask that question.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to bring it back if it's okay to see if anyone else has questions about stormwater or whatnot, and then I'll make sure that we check to make sure we don't miss your hand, Gary.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So the applicant mentioned that there was a public meeting at some point. Were the concerns of the residents raised tonight brought up at that meeting? And if so, what was the applicant's take away from that meeting? Like, I'm just curious to know, like, were some of these things that were brought up tonight brought up at that meeting? And, you know, did you guys have some sort of a, you know, mitigation plan, or how did that go?
Sure. Lance Adams, Adams Architects. Yes, those were the key points. It's part of your outreach. A part of your packet are the notes from the outreach meeting. And many of the members here were on that, in that discussion. So a lot was drainage, which obviously you can tell we've been working on it. We've got more to get to the final technical drawings to do after the preliminary part is approved or not. And then the other items were traffic, and I've had a couple phone calls from people that were on that meeting as well to discuss traffic items, which the city has added in as well, that is driven by our traffic study. But there's some additional conditions in there to help mitigate traffic issues in the area for it. I understand that adding the apartments, obviously that brings more vehicles. It seems like there are issues now that are going on, and maybe there are things that those should be addressed outside of what this preliminary development is currently. So,
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner.
Are you through with the water?
Yeah, I'm done.
I have some water questions. And my first one is for Sandy. Sandy, under the code, our responsibility is to make sure that the drainage plan does not allow for any additional harm to the existing situation. Is that correct?
Yes.
It does not provide a mitigation for any drainage problems that have occurred over the last 20 years. Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge, correct.
So that, thank you. And I want to ask Chris Storm basically the same question, if I may.
Yes. Chris?
Chris, when you are looking at the existing condition and planning for the final drainage plan, is your plan to make sure there is absolutely no additional harm that is caused by your new drainage plan?
Exactly. We look for where we're taking the water from and where we're putting it to, making sure there's a storm sewer system downstream of it so that we're not putting it on somebody else's property adjacent to it.
But you're not looking to see what has occurred over the last 10 or 20 years. Is that correct?
The stormwater management plan doesn't address existing conditions. I gave the number of existing conditions. The criteria talks about tributary area and allowable discharge rate. It does not look at existing conditions as part of the stormwater management plan.
So as far as the retention pond goes, there was a concern raised that the existing retention ponds were not big enough.
So on that note, so what goes to those detention ponds is the Lot 5 drainage, the developed flow. And there is one area that goes to the west, and the majority of the site goes to the east. If the detention pond was lower, and in those conservation areas, there's a lot of what I call off-site flow that is upstream of this project, and those detention ponds would not be sized for that because that's additional flow from other sites upstream that would pass through the detention pond and isn't part of the stormwater management for this project. So those ponds would be undersized if they were moved over on the lot because of additional flow.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And speaking of the retention ponds, did I hear that is one off-site? Did I?
Just to clarify, so retention ponds hold water and don't really release it. Detention ponds detain.
Yes.
Water comes in and releases it slowly.
And you're doing detention ponds.
The city of Lawrence requires detention ponds.
And are any of them off-site or they're all
There is
on-site?
one that, so there was a picture that was up, I think you put it up there, that said, here's this, it's located just immediately west of Crossgate, north of the houses there. That, I'm going to say, I don't know where that came about. I don't know if it was an old sand trap or whatever, but there isn't an outlet pipe there. So the water goes in and then kind of does whatever in there. It either overflows or goes through or whatever. I could never find an outlet pipe. With the public improvements, that area will be improved to a detention pond with an outlet pipe that meters the water comes in from the curb inlets, and the site upstream goes into that area and then goes out a smaller pipe.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
So there is one small detention pond off-site immediately east of Crossgate. The main one for the majority of the site is, I said east, I meant west, east of the site.
Okay, thank you.
And okay, so site 5.
Lot 5.
Lot 5, we know that it is going to be mitigated so there's no damage, no increased water flow into the neighborhood.
Correct.
Didn't you just say that property that is not on Lot 5 is also draining into that detention pond?
No, not through the detention pond that I'm building. If it was lower, there's all kinds of streams and everything that in that conservation area down low that are coming from areas to the north. Those do not flow through. They go through Lot 5, but just on the conservation area where we can't really put a detention pond. Like, we would be detaining for an area that's huge upstream. And it'd be difficult to discharge that because we can't go lower, if that makes sense.
But is that area also contributing to the issues that the neighbors are having?
The area
with water going into the neighborhood, you can control Lot 5 water.
Right.
And it is maybe being controlled now or not.
I would say right now there's no controls on the golf course as in detention. All the water just, it rains and it runs off because, and we're talking the golf course hasn't, I mean, that's been there for, I don't know, 60 years plus. I mean, unless there's a sand trap and the water falls in that and doesn't go anywhere, but there is no mitigation or stormwater detention with the current facility. It just runs off to adjacent properties.
Because I appreciated Commissioner Rexroad's question. I'm not sure I understood the answer. Are conditions worse now for the homeowners than they were 10 years, 15 years ago? And is that attributable to development that has occurred that has not been mitigated, that we did not mitigate that?
I would have to have a specific point to sit there and say, like, for instance, the properties along, Quail Court, is that right?
Quail Creek Court.
Sorry, Quail Creek Court. Lot 5 is at a crest. The areas upstream, the apartments upstream, none of that storm water hits the backs of those lots. It's all from Lot 5 area and areas farther south. Does that make sense? Everything north, let's call it the previous two projects, like the one on Birdie Way to the west, I would call them the high rise, the taller apartments. Those all drained to the detention pond that was graded, I mean, I don't know, 2018 or whatever, the big pond that's back there to the west of those apartments. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I do.
Yep.
I do.
The area to the east of Birdie Way falls off to the east, and some of it, there's a pond that was graded in there. The stormwater engineer and I have talked about when that pond was done, it was more of a water feature, and we want to try to kind of work with the owner to get that into more of a stormwater management function in addition to a water feature. Make it do some stormwater detention, but that would be the apartments east of Crossgate Drive and the wellness center and the pool. Does that make sense? But this basin goes all the way up to Bob Billings Parkway.
I guess going back to what Sandy said, who's responsible is not our responsibility at this point. And yet, are we really saying to the neighbors who seem to have some water issues, we have pictures, we have testimony, we have the letters that have been sent in, that's just God's plan and you built in the wrong spot?
I'm going to say, if there's something, I mean, there's a storm sewer that runs through Quail Creek Court that runs from the north end to the very south end. One of the ideas I have for the houses, this isn't part of Lot 5, but creating a channel along there, because it all discharges at the same spot, but creating a channel along there to intercept that flow. Now, that's not part of Lot 5. That goes into the golf course. So, I mean, it's not part of this project, but it's something that should be looked at and considered.
Well, I would just say, I'm sure you have had your rear end nipped at many times, and Kyle has, and Andy has over this. And I hear the genuine concerns that we can't answer it now, but we know when it really comes to the final plan. And yet, when I think it was Ms. Prager that said, we have spent $1 bazillion to try and solve problems that we don't believe were our problem. It just happened to us. And is that just?
I can't talk to the existing conditions. I moved to Lawrence in 2000. I mean, the golf course has been there for a long time. Some of these houses have been here for a long time. However, when I go out there and I see rock and water coming through the rock, there's an issue there. And those houses have been there for a long, long time. And I know there's other parts all around the golf course where there's issues too. And not just adjacent to where this is happening. It's other corners of the golf course. So the golf course was probably there before a lot of the houses were. But I don't know about that.
I will say I appreciate your response, and I'm sure it is not satisfactory to.
We're looking forward to improve things from.
Right. That was my question is like the end statement is your goal is to improve what is there because the pervious land of the golf course itself is just free for all for the water.
I can't go around the perimeter of the golf course and raise up a wall and keep all the water in there. I can't do it.
That was
the water has to run away. It has to get in the adjacent creeks, and it's going downhill.
Thank you. Commissioner Munch.
I can control the area that we're developing and fix that.
Commissioner Munch, did you have a question?
Yeah, related to all this, to maybe put a finer point on this, hopefully, and not to put words in your mouth, Chris, or yours, Kyle, but regardless of whether or not the applicant has a duty to address existing conditions, it sounds like it's prudent to make note of existing conditions and realize where there are already problems. And is it true, is it accurate that you both are going to be factoring in the comments that we've heard tonight and that you've received elsewhere in the process, to note that, okay, we understand there's already this type of runoff issue or spring issue in this area. Let's be mindful of that we don't make it worse. Is that accurate?
That's to you, Chris. I believe.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going into the next phase of this project. What we've done up to this point is high level, kind of, I mean, here's the issue, this is what we fix it. Now we start putting the details into it, and these plans are reviewed by the city and the staff.
I guess what I'm trying to put a pin on is that in this process, it's a technical process. It doesn't warrant, it shouldn't have a public comment notice aspect to it. This is for engineers to figure out. That said, I'm hopeful that in this process, you're doing more than just looking at contour maps, correct? That you're understanding that there's a human element here.
Yes.
We've heard human stories, we've seen some pictures, we've seen videos, and that those should be accounted for within this process as we go forward. Not eradicated, not corrected based off of whatever happened in 1995 or whenever, but with an understanding that this is not going to be made worse by whatever is now being developed.
I've read through every correspondence that's come in. I've looked at every letter. I sit there and go, okay, this address, what are they talking about? Make a note to kind of revisit that. That's exactly when we move forward, what we're going to take a look at. I'm going to say, I can't solve every problem, but we're definitely going to consider these issues moving forward.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions from the commission?
I had a question, Sandy, about the traffic study. There was a couple of comments made about the time of day, how long the study was. I may have missed it. I've read this packet, but it was 108 pages, and I don't remember everything. Was there specifics about I know you said April, perfect, but like details about the study that might help fill in the blanks?
If I'm fortunate, Dave Cronin may still be on the line here. I did not attach the traffic study to your staff report for that additional 50 or more pages you get to read. That is very technical.
Sure.
So I would let Dave respond to that, but there are guidelines and best practices for preparing these studies.
Okay.
And Dave is not shy about calling out an applicant when they don't follow those things.
Understood.
Yep, I'm here, Sandy. Can you hear me?
Okay. Good.
So the study was done on a Tuesday in April. And our standard procedure is to take traffic counts on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday during a typical weekday while schools in session, KU's in session, public schools are in session. So that's our standard procedures for getting traffic on what we call a typical day.
Okay, so it was was it a one-day study?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
The traffic counts were taken on one day, and then the engineer during the study ran the different impacts and models and trip generation, distribution rates, and then submitted the study in June.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Eldridge.
Could I pile onto that?
I'm sorry, I've already recognized Commissioner Eldridge, but you're next, Gary.
Okay. I'd like to ask David Cronin a couple of questions. David, can you come back?
I'm here.
Oh, thank you. When you do a traffic study, and particularly the traffic study in April, you were studying the existing conditions. Is that correct?
Correct. The study includes getting a traffic count of the existing conditions. Then the study includes using the land use, in this instance, the multifamily apartments, to come up with a trip generation rate based off the number of units to take that increase in traffic, and then also look to the future in 20 years and do a future traffic analysis, assuming a growth rate with existing plus development plus growth of traffic. And so the traffic study looks at those three different scenarios.
So do you look at giving an intersection a grade in the existing condition before you then add the projected additional cars? But when you start off, and what was the existing condition? Was that an acceptable intersection?
Yes, I would say for this study, just to get a little more specific, that major intersections that were looked at were Bob Billings and Birdie Way, the access point there, and then Crossgate and Clinton Parkway. So those are nodes where we're looking at a very high level where generating traffic's coming into the site. And those locations we're looking at warrants for, in the case of Bob Billings and Birdie Way, is a traffic signal warranted? Is longer turn lanes or any turn lanes warranted? Is signal timing, does that need to be changed? For instance, at Clinton Parkway and Crossgate. And so we're looking at all of those different items. But yes, for the level of service, the existing level of service, so it's graded from A, B, C, D, E, or F, those intersections in the existing condition were acceptable. And they were found to be acceptable in the future condition.
And what the existing condition intersections, were they an A, B, C, or D? What was their grade?
I'd need a minute or two to pull that up.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Need some time. You need some time.
He needs
I would need some time I could get it to you probably in the next minute or two. But let's see here.
In the meantime, do you have another question, or should we move to
Yes.
Gary's question?
The next question is, then with the projected increase in traffic, did that change the grade for those intersections?
Well, I'll look at here, I'm looking at, we'll start by looking at Bob Billings and Birdie Way. So in the existing condition, and that intersection is a little different. So there's two different, not to get super technical, but when we're not looking at signalized intersections, we're looking at different level of service for turning movements. So that intersection ranged depending on the movement, like westbound, left was an A, northbound, B, and I don't know, I'm having a hard time with this. And one turning movement was an F. So the overall level of service there was an E at Bob Billings and Birdie Way. At Clinton Parkway and Crossgate, which is a signalized intersection, the level of service was a B. That's a good one to look at because it's an existing signal. So in the existing condition, it's an A. In the existing condition plus development, it was a B in the PM peak hour. And in the future 20 years down the road condition, it was still a B. So the signal at Clinton Park, that's the signal at Clinton Parkway and Crossgate. So that had a very minor delay in overall traffic. That includes all movements of the intersection from the existing condition plus development plus 20 years in the future.
So in the Bob Billings and Birdie Way, the one turning movement that had an F, did that improve with the addition of the traffic that would be going through there?
No. It is still an F. And that is not unusual for a side road on say, an arterial collector street to have a turning movement at a level of service E or F on a side road, stop condition, turning onto an arterial street like that. It's not uncommon. So the delay does increase in the future. There is more traffic, and so, but it didn't get to the threshold of requiring a traffic signal. So that's when we're looking at the overall movements of all directions. So it'd be the east-west traffic on Bob Billings and then turning on and off of Birdie Way. That did not meet the thresholds for a traffic signal.
But if it were to in the future, there would be the option of either adding a turn signal. And would that be, at that point, it would be in the charge of the city to decide that?
Well, in the future, if a traffic signal was ever warranted, then yes, it would be the city's responsibility to install it.
So the city would monitor that like it does all other intersections and potentially put a turn signal there if it was warranted at some point in the future?
That is correct.
Okay. And I have one last question for you, and that was the overall grade on the Bob Billings and Birdie Way. What was it with just the existing conditions?
Level service of E.
E?
Yeah.
And then when you add the new traffic, what was the overall grade for that intersection?
F.
So
that's for northbound. That's for northbound, the side road.
Okay.
Are there other questions?
And with the overall grade being an F, were there any recommendations made to change that intersection in any way?
There was not. And again, that's just the northbound movement, which has a much smaller volume than east-west. East-west, Bob Billings has a large traffic volume. Okay. And so there's no delay to the majority of traffic at that intersection, which is there on Bob Billings. And so it's just the northbound approach. So it's different than looking at the level of service at a signalized intersection. So it's a little different, but the answer of what we're looking at is at an intersection like that is, does this traffic volume now with the development or in the future with the development, will it warrant a traffic signal? That's the next improvement, would be a traffic signal. And the answer to that from the study was no, it would not warrant additional improvements with a traffic signal. It did not warrant additional turn lane lengths as well. So when the last phase of the project, when Birdie Way was built and the old Crossgate was closed, a westbound left turn lane was installed on Bob Billings, and that was sized sufficiently to accommodate the traffic back then and then accommodate the traffic projections with this project for turning traffic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Gary, did you have some questions?
Yeah, for Dave. Hey, if you could stay on with.
Sorry, Dave, you're back.
Yeah, I think I understood your and Jane's conversation dealing with the intersections on the north and the south at Bell Billings and at Clinton Parkway. Did you spend any time working on the traffic that many of the people in the room have talked about tonight, in and around where this new development might be. The safety concerns they have about windy roads, the idea that Birdie Way actually seems to go through the parking lot of the apartments that are there, fairly unconventional. Did you look at that? And what was your impression of the when you heard the people's concerns tonight? Are those valid or?
Well, I would recognize there's certainly going to be an increase in traffic. And when there's an increase in traffic, there's an increase in opportunity or chances for crashes. The traffic study did do a crash analysis as well with the project. It looked at crashes at the intersection, but also looked at crashes on Birdie Way, on the private street, and on the public street. And there was no, I mean, in the last 10 years, there has only been 2 crashes on the private street section. Both were with parked cars or hitting parked cars, backing out of the parking stalls, not with 2 vehicles colliding at an intersection. And so the safety analysis that was done with the project, the crash rates were less than what we would call average. So there was no existing concern with crashes. Likewise, with the traffic study, we look at access, but the proposed access and intersection sight distance. So with the proposed access point to Birdie Way for this development, it looked at turning on and off of out of the development onto Birdie Way, and it met intersection sight distance for 25 miles per hour, which is the existing posted speed limit. I would say that often vehicles do drive faster than the posted speed limit. And the traffic study also noted some of the concerns that you heard tonight from the neighbors in the public meeting that they held, and the traffic study also recommended installing some traffic calming on Birdie Way on the private street section to help reduce speeds, which could also be a safety improvement for the access point if traffic calming was installed close to the access point to Birdie Way. But yes, so hopefully that answers your question. I have driven through there. I'm very familiar with the street before and after the last project that constructed Birdie Way to Bob Billings. So,
all right. So what remedy will the city have if this project goes through? The 300 potential cars are going to come out of this one passage, hit that intersection, as someone previously described as being at 2 points of a curve with limited visibility both ways, with golf carts going back and forth, traffic headed into the club and into the fitness center. What remedy will we have if we get this wrong right now?
I don't know if we have a remedy without knowing what the problem is. I mean, if this would be a private street, and traffic control on a private street is maintained by the owner.
Yeah.
So I can't say that the city would require the owner to make any improvements.
So it's really important, though, that if this is our one time to have input. Is that right?
It is.
Once it's done, yeah. All right. Yeah. That's what I wanted to know, Dave. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Adams. So you went into some detail about the exception that can be made to have one entry, but then sprinkler system was required.
Correct.
What was the reason for not having another entry?
So much like for access to the site is done very much like access for a building. For a building, when it's required to have 2 exits for it. Those exits have to be a certain distance apart. If you are, this is for a building, and then we're going to put it to a site. For a building, you have to take 1/2 the diagonal of the building from corner to corner, and without a sprinkler system, you have to have 2 exit doors that are more than 1/2 that diagonal on the building, okay? If I put a sprinkler system, that goes from 1/2 to 1/3 on a building. Now, the fire department and the International Fire Code looks at a site the same way that I look at a building. So the site, we had to look at it and go, where's the diagonal across this site, Lot 5, and go, now I have to have, if I'm not going to sprinkle the buildings, I have to have 2 entry points, fire access points, which are different than from a place where I'm going to drive my car and get to my house. Okay, so there's fire access points. So that is a different type of street. It could be a hardened pavement with a curb that you can drive over for a fire truck to access. So, but I have to have 2 of those points, 1/2 the diagonal of the site. The other option, one of the other options they give is that if I sprinkle everything, that goes to 1/3. So we looked at that, and as we looked at that, that was with our larger number of apartments, of units we were going to provide with the building. And, you know, like Paul Davis had pointed out, we did look at coming off Crossgate, and then for a real drive, but it, you know, come up the hill and around, and then a fire access point was well over, kind of off the back end of the Wellness Center parking lot to hit that far corner of the site. Did that meet? It was very close to, does it work or not? And then we had the discussion of, there's a whole another exception in the code that says, if you're at 200 units, you can provide just 1 access point. And that allowed us then to go, well, let's not do that one right off Crossgate next to the neighbors' houses, and reduced our units down to get to that 200 number, and then sprinkle the additional buildings that were required to be sprinkled with that exception. So in a roundabout way, that's how it got to that point. So there were many considerations for what is the impact on the neighborhood for access points, what is allowable or not, and how to make that work for everybody.
So you could have built a higher density project here if you had put in that road.
Correct.
But instead of putting in the road, you reduced the density that was here and then didn't put in the road next to the neighbors off of Crossgate.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the 200 units, are they limited to a certain number of bedrooms, or could it?
They are limited by units. So bedrooms can be 500 bedrooms in 1 unit. It is limited by unit. That is how the development code is written, and that's how the building code is written. So that is coordinated by unit.
Oh.
Yeah.
We talked at length about that during the LDC.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
I don't think we considered a place having 500.
No, we definitely didn't go to that extreme, but we did have that discussion.
Okay. So I have a question coming out of this, and I'll pivot to Sandy if that's okay. So understood that we need 1 access point for 200 units. Does that change if you also have a massive maintenance shed or a drive-through snack shack or a pool? Does that impact how many access points you need as well? Or is it just, we just care about dwelling units?
At that point, it is talking about the number of residential units. The additional buildings have that higher level of fire suppression that becomes required. So fire's looking at a couple of different things. One is the residential intensity, and then what those buildings are and how they're constructed.
Got it.
So.
Okay, that makes sense. And then to go off of Chair Hayden's comment just a moment ago, it seems like if I was following the numbers correctly here, This is a remarkable instance of threading the needle on two different requirements. On one hand, we have to have 200 units and no more, because if we go over that, we have to have this other access point. But then on the other hand, we have to have at least 16 density, minimum density, and we come in at 16.2. Can you speak to just how amazing that is, or is that purposeful?
It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, mostly Chris Storms.
Okay.
This is something that's new and unique in this code. In the past, how we looked at density for a planned development, there were deductions of certain things to get to a net area in older versions of the code. In this code, it's very specific about what things can be counted. And they eked by. They did thread the needle. And as we talk about compatibility on one hand, but density on another, this is a tough project. It's a tough infill project. It's a uniquely shaped piece of ground. You have development all the way around it, except for the golf course, which isn't development, but it's a use. And you just don't have a lot of opportunities to bring other vehicular means into this property.
So with that, noting that it just eked by, and is that pure luck and Chris's blood, sweat, and tears, or is there some squishiness in the net density calculation that we took advantage of? And this is pure curiosity, not sitting here not having had the benefit of the study session with respect to net density and how that's calculated. Were there judgment calls made in that calculation as to we can include this or not include it, and that'll get us closer to getting over that 16 mark, or?
That was the planning director's call, so Jeff did get to weigh in on that final determination of what that number looked like. Did we count it correctly? This is a first test case scenario of the code and how it's working. And I think there was some discussion about bringing kind of this topic to the board at a study session later, because it does have some bigger impacts. So a little bit of luck on the applicant's side to be able to thread that needle. Whether or not the code is doing the thing we wanted it to do, that's a different evaluation.
Mm-hmm. So I guess question for you, Jeff. How do you feel about the calculation here? And if you did it 50 times, would you end up at that over the 16 mark, or were there calls made that it's a toss up?
I didn't do it 50 times, I'll be honest, but the few times I did do it, we kept coming back to the same number because we wanted to make sure that what Chris had and what we were seeing in just the mathematical part of it, the acres and the amount of easements in place and everything like that, was coming back to that calculation. So we did it a few times to make sure that we were getting to the same numbers too. So I don't think there's a lot of squishiness in it, but there is a lot of those elements that come into play as sites develop and change. Easements come on or they come off as part of that. There may be a dedication of right-of-way that needs to come on or off. But what we've seen on the preliminary development plan and what was provided by the applicant, we felt comfortable with the numbers that they had.
Got it. And for my own edification here, there are a number of details of this project, just like any other project, that are going to be worked out as we move towards a final plan. Is that density calculation, that net density calculation, is that likely to change? Is there new information or new developments that come in or out of the process where that might be adjusted?
There may be some easements that change over time as you start to do the public improvement plans, you find that you maybe have a line that goes a little deeper and needs a little bit of a wider easement on that. But we think what they have proposed is durable for the long term going to the final development plan.
Got it. Thanks.
Go ahead.
I just have a point of clarification for.
I'm sorry, you have to be recognized with a question. Sorry.
And that is, we didn't have a mid-month dealing with net density. because the staff is still working through it,
Mhm.
and we will have an amendment to consider later, but that is still an open issue as far as I'm aware. So, thank you.
Anything else, or did you have any specific question for Chris or anything?
I did not. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the.
I don't have Zoom. Does Gary have his? Gary, I see that you're ready to say something, please.
Yep, one quick, and I think maybe my last question for the applicant. I'm curious what the plans are for the 2 golf holes that this development sits on top of.
Much like the staff request of indicating the cart paths, we are also working through with the owner, and then the owner will be working with the golf club on what those new layouts are. So as we move forward, when you see the final development plans, when you will see a final on what the golf course will look like.
You anticipate that those 2 fairways, though, are going to change, and as one of the concerns that someone mentioned earlier was that makes a fairway pretty tightly packed.
Sure. I am working on preliminary layouts of the golf course, and some of those fairways are no longer going to be used, which may make some clients happy. Is that the final direction? I don't know yet. We are still working with the golf course itself and the owner to do those final developments. So it is part of this project, but then again, it is a secondary piece of it as well. So as the final development plan comes in, we'll have the final answers on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have
Yes.
one. Sandy, I may have asked this and you may have answered it, but I'm going to ask it again. So this is a private, the road is private, and I think Commissioner Rexroad mentioned that this is our one opportunity to sort of get this right. So if we were to approve this project, and the residents continue to have problems with water, or it gets worse, or the traffic conditions get worse, really, it's not, since it's private, can the city even do anything about it?
There's probably not a lot
Okay.
the city can do. Where the driveway of this project intersects the street network, it intersects at the point of Birdie Way, which is the private street part of it.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of times when I talk with the public and my answer is, this is a civil matter.
Right.
This is between property owners.
Right.
The city will do its best to help when we can, but some of the runoff issues are between private property owners. And when things happen on the golf course, that's not something that there's never been a development plan for the golf course. It's not something we look at. They can change the golf course, and the city is not engaged in that, except for those portions where we have floodplain across the property. Then the city is engaged in that. Now, the city does have land disturbance permits, so we probably will be more engaged going forward of things that are happening on the golf course outside of the project, but there's going to be limits of what the city can do in the future.
Right. Thank you.
At this point, I think, would we be all right with a 5-minute break? Is a recess or break there a better way to do this?
Please.
Yes. Should we go into 5-minute break? We'll take a 5-minute break at the moment. Thank you. And then Commissioner Munch will get to your question as soon as we get back. Thank you for allowing us the break. I think we're ready to come back. Commissioner Munch, you were about to introduce or to follow up.
Yeah, I guess a follow-up on a comment that Sandy made prior to the break. So understand and appreciate that there are a number of issues related to this development and related developments that are really civil matters. As you noted, they're between the developer and the property owners, or amongst the property owners. Understanding that, we have had some reference in public comment to agreements that were made or understandings that were established in earlier stages of redevelopment in this area. Is there anything there that you can speak to as relevant or not to what we're deciding this evening?
Yes. So in your packet, you saw a master plan that was included with that very early plan, where it showed kind of the high density at the top and the lower density to the south. And I went through staff reports and City Commission and Planning Commission action reports for this project because it didn't exactly jive with how I remembered it. The final conclusion is that there is no condition that was added either in the zoning or in the development plan that said what this phase had to be. So I do believe there were expectations. However, none of that was codified by actions, by either by the Planning Commission or the City Commission or in the zoning ordinance with that. So that's where that lives. Advance forward to today, we now have a code that has a requirement of a certain kind of density. So I don't know how you reconcile those things.
Very good. And there were comments also made with respect to how an earlier component of redevelopment was passed by the City Commission previously. It was on the consent agenda. Is there anything there worthy of note?
I would have to go back and research that. The way the zoning would get set, if the zoning gets approved, if it is unanimous or close to unanimous, it would have gone to the City Commission on a consent agenda. We did have a few zoning actions where the boundary of the plan development expanded a little bit to accommodate a little bit more land area than the original project because of siting requirements. I don't remember those being particularly controversial, so those certainly would have been on City Commission consent agendas.
Okay.
So I don't think it was any sleight of hand going on. I think that's the normal process, that certain things could go on to the City Commission as a consent item. A second reading of an ordinance would almost always be on a consent.
Right. In those instances, as a matter of procedure, the public has the opportunity to request that something be pulled off the consent agenda.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions, further discussion?
Madam Chair, you ready for a motion?
I will entertain a motion.
Okay.
Before we can I speak? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to have some comments, and I would like, before the motion is presented, I would like to maybe stir the pot a little bit more and discuss, for what I heard, most neighbors are not opposed to this development, but all of them do agree that it must be carried out responsibly with with safeguards that protect existing neighborhoods from additional harm. So with this said, I would like to ask my fellow commissioners, is it possible that with this motion, if this motion is made to approve it, that we include that an independent stormwater study is done that evaluates the off-site impacts on surrounding homes, not just the project boundaries. That's one. And two, some concrete commitments from developers to install an effective flood mitigation infrastructure, if possible, before construction begins.
Commissioner
And
Brodo,
third-
what was the second one?
Yeah, some concrete commitments from developers to install effective flood mitigation infrastructures, if it's possible, before construction begins. And then number three, and maybe Randy Larkin can weigh in on this one, and I'm saying it last, some clear accountability measures that if flooding worsen as a result of this development, that residents are not left to shoulder the cost. And then the third one again is, I'm not 100% sure of that one, but if someone can help me out on that one, would be great.
Great. Randy, do you want to address the third request there about a measure of liability?
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. I didn't quite catch exactly what the gist of that was. I mean, we would establish liability through the ordinance, or what is exactly would we be doing?
I believe it would try to be a condition moving forward, or a condition of recommendation of approval, that there would be an accountability measures included. I'm guessing that that's an unusual process, and that typically the accountability would be a legal accountability if there were to be damages from the project on the other side, unless I'm missing something.
Don't know that we've done anything like that in the past. I'm trying to think. We have a limited ability to do something like that would go to state court. But I mean, we have some, we can enforce our code through the state courts. But whether or not we can put a regulation on somebody like that, I'd have to think about that. Let me think for a while.
Could I offer just a thought to support what Commissioner Brodo is talking about? I think what you're saying, Pedro, is that you want some protections for the neighbors should there be damages, and that they not be responsible for themselves financially. I wonder if that could be solved through the requirement of a bond, like we would do, for example, on commercial energy, commercial scale renewable energy, right? We would require bonds that protect performance.
Okay, well, if the commissioners then would like to weigh in on the other two, I could maybe help me out.
Is that what you're thinking, though?
Yes. On the third one, yes, something like that. But.
Can I ask you one question about condition 2? You said the words "if possible." Why? What if it's not possible?
Well, I'm not in construction, so I don't know if that's something that is done at the beginning of the project, or if it's something that is built at the end of the development. So you would have a requirement that it be done. The if possible part was only tied to when it was done. Gotcha. Okay, I understand now.
Okay, so Sandy, I just want to turn to Jeff and to Sandy real quick to run these three potential conditions past you to see if those are in conformance with what we would normally do, or if these are the kinds of things that are already being considered with the conditions that are listed and the next steps. Just wondering our purview to be addressing these amendments. I mean, we can have discussion about how great they are, and we can move right to that. But before doing that, I wanted to see if either of you wanted to weigh in.
While she's pondering, I'd like to just point out that I think that the developer has pointed out that they want to mitigate flooding and that their goal is to encourage proper drainage, especially off to that east side, to prevent, problems. We're dealing with pervious soil right now that we cannot control. The goal with the impervious surfaces is to manage that more effectively and turn a pond that is a water feature into something that will actually maintain and control the water. I don't know that I could, and they can't promise that it would solve all of the issues, but our responsibility is to ask the question, does it make it better or does it make it worse? All indications through all the studies that have been done and everything that has been presented, the developer is making it better. They can't make it worse in the sense that they're putting in pervious materials and managing the drainage more effectively. It's sandy soil right now with the golf course, and all that water, as they were saying, hits a solid surface underneath and it has to go somewhere. And so by being able to manage it through pipes and drainage and waterways, and even the way they're building in the new sidewalks, there is at least plans to improve it. It can't be perfect. We can't predict a 100-year flood any more than we can predict anything else, but I think that the goal is to create a plan that is better. I don't know that it's our responsibility to try to put in wording that makes a developer promise X, Y, or Z. We are the Planning Commission. Our job is to look at whether or not this meets the criteria that is in front of us, follow the staff reports, and ensure that we are doing due diligence to read through the materials and create an opinion that is best for the city, the community, and how we want to move the city forward.
Real quick, did staff want to say anything? I know I turned to staff, and I do not want to then not come back to you. Did you have any thing you wanted to weigh in on? I was just thinking about independent stormwater and what the stormwater effect would be on the outside. It's my understanding that might have already been considered in this plan, and so I wasn't sure if that is something that is not an outside study, but what's being asked of the outside study. It sounds like maybe something Kurt has done or has been working with the applicant to do or will do already. I just wanted to check on those things.
Part of what we're trying to figure out is the intent of the item to be a study beyond the boundaries of the project, because that can start to be a very substantial scope that you start getting into. And then there's the question of who pays for that, what does that look like, and then what is the expectation of it. And I'm not sure we immediately know if we even have code authority to even do something of that nature at this point in time. That's something we even have to research to figure out if that's even within our purview to some degree. Commissioner Broda's second one, if I understood it, and I hope I wrote it down right, so Commissioner, if I didn't, please let me know, but to require infrastructure be installed before construction to mitigate possible effects. And usually, and I will go a little over my skis, and hopefully MSO will correct me when I'm wrong here, but as part of the public improvement plans is you would design those and have those in place before you get to a certain degree of allowing building permits to be installed and going through. So there should be some of that by nature in the process already. Now, there's also components of any number of stormwater criteria that would be in effect as part of the project. So if there was silting and other things that would have to be controlled on the project site to help mitigate anything that would come off of, silt or runoff or any kind of a debris or loss of that would be a part of that. So that's kind of inherent in the process. I don't know about, the full-blown infrastructure being installed throughout, because there are points where you may not want to install it immediately, to have it torn up during the construction process to reinstall it. So there might be a little bit of that give and take that goes on there. And for the third one, I'm kind of with Randy, I'd have to really think about that one, because I can't recall a very similar condition like that applied to a preliminary development plan that would be in a very similar line, but that's not one that's been brought to me before, in honesty.
Thank you, Jeff. Commissioner Eldridge?
I just wanted to say I support Commissioner Crawford's statements, because this is a preliminary development plan. And I think that there are a number of conditions that staff has recommended that will take care of these problems as the planning gets more mature before there is a final development plan. And I very much appreciate Commissioner Barotto's comments, because I don't think any of us here felt anything other than a lot of sympathy and concern for these neighbors. Some of that we can help. We can help making sure that the project going forward does not add to their problems, but we cannot solve the problems of the past. And I think it's simply not permitted under our code, and it's not permitted under our precedents. And I think that I very much appreciate what Sandy has done in terms of recommending conditions that will keep this project moving forward, provide the additional housing that we need, and provide the security that we can provide for the neighbors.
Commissioner Rexroad?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you had taken your mute off, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to weigh in on that.
I have more comments to make. I'll make those after a motion before vote.
Okay, great. Anyone else have further discussion or comments before we look for a motion? Any further discussion on the proposed potentials to add to your motion? All right.
I would contend we don't add those. I think that the city has done a good job of creating improvement plans necessary for the next phase, like Commissioner Eldridge was saying.
I'll look for a motion.
All right, I would make a motion to approve the preliminary development plan DP 250005 for the Jayhawk Club Lot 5 located at 1840 Crossgate Drive, based on the findings of fact presented in the body of the staff report, and forwarding a recommendation of approval to the City Commission subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All right. Any further discussion on this motion? Commissioner Rexroad.
Yes, please. Thank you. I want to share a couple of thoughts. I appreciate the discussion that we've had. It's been a rich, great discussion. Really appreciate the work that Sandy's done on this. I know this is a big, big project. I don't question the judgment on if it is code compliant. I'm sure that it is. I know that the applicant's done a lot of work over quite a long time to make sure that we fit into our new code and find our way to something that makes it a manageable project for them. Having said all that, I have some real concerns about the maturity of this application. And what I mean by that is we've heard from the community some serious concerns about stormwater. Stormwater that, when asked the specific question, was this there all along, or has this gotten worse as the development that's occurred at the Jayhawk Club has taken place? And the answer was it's gotten worse. So we have a situation now where we're going into yet another phase of development. We have neighbors that are already impacted, and we're not able to not only protect them from further damage, and let me click into that in just a minute, but we're not addressing the things that have happened so far. And I have real concern about in a situation like this where the applicant has not been able to, whether they're unable to or unwilling to, address the problems that have been created already, that we are in fact going to be able to make any promises or assurances. The fact that Kyle had made the statement that we want to mitigate so that no one is impacted, that we can't get to that yet. That to me reads like we're not quite ready to go. And I apply that same logic to the concerns around traffic. We've got one opportunity as a community to get this right. And as David pointed out, they've done some looking at it. They think that maybe they're okay, but there is no opportunity, there's no recourse if the people's who live there right now's lived experiences is actually factual. If it is going to be something that represents a safety and a hazard. I'm sure this is going to go through, and I'm making these comments because I want to make sure that as the city commission receives this, that they have this other voice saying that when the applicant goes through this work, that we have got to take the steps that they become accountable for the impacts of the neighbors that are around them. Sandy made the comment, hey, it gets down to it's a civil matter between property owners. Not tonight, it's not. This is the purpose that we have tonight. We are to look at these things. They are a part of the decision that we make. That comment makes some sense when all of the property owners have the same rights. The neighbors don't have rights. The neighbors are counting on us. We're the only ones that represent them in this. So I just want to make those points. Sorry for the long monologue there, and I'll stop now. But I just wanted to share those concerns. I will be voting no based on that concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Rexroad's comments and concerns, and I join in many of them. I too am skeptical of this application. I intend to vote against it. Infill is always tough, as we've seen. I have concerns when there's a large project being shoehorned into a tight space amongst existing development. I think, as we heard from the public this evening, there are a variety of concerns, some of which are likely to be addressed in the development of the final plan, some of which might not be. And as Commissioner Rexroad noted, it's imperative that we get it right because we won't really have another opportunity to revisit some of these issues. I also go back to, there was a comment made by a member of the public that what we're looking at is a 200 unit development that's off of a parking lot, off of a private drive, that's off of a parking lot. It seems that we're dealing with a nesting doll of development here, but the largest component is in the middle somehow, and that gives me concern from an infrastructure perspective, from a safety perspective, emergency services, et cetera. Even if it's checking all the right technical boxes, it's edging right over the line. So I do have concerns there, and I intend to vote against it.
Other discussion? Anybody else want to say anything? Well, I will say I also share Commissioner Rexroad's a lot of his comments tonight, and it's always difficult, I think, as these projects come before us. This is not the first project we've seen where there've been it's quite preliminary stage that we've been asked to look at things like stormwater and traffic and the effects on neighbors. And I think it's really important that we think about what is it that we want to see at this stage of the process. So at the Planning Commission stage, what is the expectation? What should developers be able to figure out that they need to present in order to have the information the Planning Commission wants? And that's whether it's a city application or a county application, because we're a joint planning commission. And so I think it's really important that as we think about the expectation that we have for all of the different projects that we see, we're really asking ourselves those questions as though we're in the position of all the neighbors of all of the projects that come in front of us, whether it's infill or outfill. And so I do share a lot of that, but this is very consistent with other plans that we have seen that have had about this amount of information, with the idea that we're going to go on and do preliminary studies and we're going to be very cautious, and we have things put in place in order to do our very best to make sure that this is done right. I have a little concern with this project because it is coming in at the beginning of the new land development code with perhaps some calculations that are a little different. But I think if it's my understanding that if some of the net density was calculated a little bit different, it actually wouldn't affect the amount of the density that would be able to be presented on this particular piece of property. So while I do have some hesitation, and I would like to see us get more information about stormwater and traffic and what some of these projects and what the impact on the community and on the neighbors is going to be, I think that we have right now probably enough to pass it forward at this preliminary stage. And so I'll probably be voting in favor of it. But I would just like to say, I do think it's really important that we think about those things that were raised by Commissioner Rexroad.
Could I just say one thing? Sorry. I think what Commissioner Brodo said made a lot of sense to me. And I think it would make me feel comfortable if the developer had addressed those concerns the way that Commissioner Brodo listed them. If they had said, we heard the neighbors and we're going to do these things, even though they're not part of the project, we want to make things better. I think that would have made me feel confident voting in favor. But, just sort of sticking to, we don't have to do it, so why do it? I don't. I heard, I think it was Chris say that he has a lot of things that he would do to make the stormwater issue better. Why not just do them? Why are they, so I think Commissioner Brodo is where my thinking is at. It's like if the developer had sort of taken that extra step, I think it would have made me feel more comfortable. So at this point, I'm a no, but, yeah, that's where I am. Yeah.
Any other comments or discussion? Any online? Nope. All right. In that case, then I guess I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hand. All those opposed? Did you get that count?
Yes, the motion fails 4-3.
Right, the motion fails. So now we have no pending motion. Does that mean we now need a second motion?
Correct.
So I'll entertain a motion.
And Commissioner Baroto does have his hand raised.
Oh, yes. Commissioner Baroto.
I'm sorry, I guess it's just a computer. I don't know how to turn that on. Sorry. Hold on. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
Oh, I don't think he was going to make a motion, though. So I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Okay, yeah. I think Commissioner Munch is going to take a shot.
Okay.
So I move that we do not approve the preliminary development plan DP 25-0005 for the Jayhawk Club Lot 5 located at 1840 Crossgate Drive based on the findings. Skip that. And do not forward a recommendation of approval or forward a recommendation of non-approval, disapproval to the City Commission subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on this motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
If an original motion that failed went forward without any further motions, that would have required 4 city commissioners to reverse that. Is that correct?
I knew this under the old code. Let me double check under the new code real quickly.
Also, does the applicant get an option to discuss some of the items brought up that weren't discussed by?
I'm sorry, not at this time. Now that comment has been closed. And so at the moment we have a pending motion, and so we don't have any discussion. If we don't have a motion and we go back to discussion, someone may have a question for you, and at that point I could recognize you to speak.
We'd like to address some of those comments that weren't brought up during the open discussion that were brought up.
Well,
Commissioner Eldridge, to your question, the code states that actions that is contrary to the Planning Commission recommendation requires a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the governing body.
And that would be 4. Is that correct?
Correct.
This is Randy Larkin, Deputy City.
Thank you.
There was no
the motion that was made did not pass. So there would have been no recommendation coming out of that. And so just so that there would be a recommendation either for approval or for disapproval, we, a couple of years ago, started doing this where one motion does not pass, then we move on the other side. And if that doesn't pass, then the recommendation will be no recommendation. But if the recommendation is that, you know, it's for disapproval, then for the governing body to approve it, it would take 4.
So in theory, you could make a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion for no recommendation, and a motion for no recommendation and a motion for deny. A tied motion would be considered a motion for denial.
This is Ray Larkin, Deputy City Attorney. No, basically, if it's a tie and there's no recommendation made at all, it would go forward as no recommendation. But that vote there was 4-3, and if the vote on the next motion, which is for disapproval, is 4-3 in favor of the motion, then it will go to the City Commission as a recommendation of disapproval, and it would take 4 votes of the City Commission to overturn that.
Thank you.
I have another question, but I'll ask it at orientation. Okay, it's coming up. Okay, any further discussion on the pending motion?
I have to ask it. So if this carries 4-3 or whatever, would the applicant have another bite, be able to bring this back with changes that we've discussed? Would that be possible, or like is this like a one shot? How does that work, Jeff?
Well, once you make a motion and it goes up to the city commission, it's for their consideration at that point in time. So they could, you know, affirm your recommendation, or they could go the other direction and override your recommendation depending upon what it is at that point. You know, that's kind of, that goes out up to that next level as the process continues on there. Now, if an item is deferred, then it would come back or stay with you for that process there. But effectively, it would be what is going forward is what have you seen tonight?
Yep.
Yep. Yes, Commissioner Eldridge.
I guess the question becomes, at this point, if we wanted to provide an opportunity for the applicant to speak to the concerns that were raised by Commissioner Barotto's additional conditions, how would we do that?
Well, at the moment, we have a pending motion. So someone, we'd have to withdraw the motion. Someone could withdraw the motion, and we'd be back at our discussion. And then if somebody had a question for the applicant, they could ask a direct question of the applicant or a member of the public at that point, because we'd be back to our discussion. But at the moment, with the pending motion, that's the only way to do that.
And so it would have to be the person who made the motion.
Correct.
And to be clear, that pending motion doesn't include Commissioner Barotto's additional conditions.
I understand, but if we wanted the opportunity to ask any questions of the applicant, I understand that we would need to withdraw the existing motion, ask our questions, and then propose another motion.
Correct. The motion and the second one both have to be withdrawn. I believe, though, that the applicant could address the issues that have been raised when it goes in front of the city, right? Because they'll be hearing this issue. And so all of those, that conversation can happen before that or during that hearing.
Give a second.
I thought we did. Yeah, he seconded. Yeah, person. Yeah. Any further discussion? All right. So all in favor of the motion to recommend denial, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All in favor, or actually against the motion to recommend denial, raise your hand.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay. So, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you all for being here today and speaking and staying to 3 minutes, and for staying with us for such a long time. So thank you. with that, we will move on to our miscellaneous new or old business that we have. And so at this point, we are going to consider appointing 2 planning commissioners, 1 city appointed and 1 county appointed to the North Lawrence Comprehensive Corridor Study Task Force. The city took this up last week, 2 weeks ago, and has asked us to appoint 2 planning commissioners. And at this time, I would like to make a motion to appoint Commissioner Eldridge as the city-appointed planning commissioner for this corridor study. She has reached out to me a week ago and said that she was interested in serving on this and she would like to serve on it. So, would there be a second?
Second. Many seconds.
I assume we do one at a time.
If you don't mind.
Okay. So, any discussion on the pending motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I think I abstain.
Fair. Motion passes. Congratulations. More work for you, Jane. And so we'll also then be looking for a county-appointed person to serve on the North Lawrence Comprehensive Corridor Study Task Force. I'm interested. I live in the area. I'd be willing to serve, but I certainly don't have to. So,
I'd nominate Chair Hayden.
I second.
thank you. Can I go ahead and do the motion?
Yes.
All in favor of the, or any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. And I believe that that is all of the business that we have. Everybody, you should have your email, the orientation, December 5th. So think about that. Do we have any other miscellaneous business before this evening?
I think we talked about some other dates for our planning commission meetings going forward for November and December, and our mid-month for October. And I was wondering if we could get all of those onto people's calendars.
We're expecting to hold your October mid-month at this point in time, barring alien abduction or other unknown thing that may occur. So we will try to pencil that one in there. And just so you all are aware, we're about to go into the escalation portion of your calendars where we start pushing this up because it starts to conflict with the holidays. When we do that, however, it also conflicts with other meetings that are in this room. So your November and December meetings will go on to one night only. And then we'll kind of have to flip back and forth between Monday and Wednesday depending upon what we've got going.
And isn't that October as well? Isn't October just one night?
Believe so, but let us double check that real quick.
So it was October 22nd. November 17th, and then December 17th.
And then the mid-month is October 8th?
Yes.
We are having it?
Yes.
Excellent. And the location for that, has that been posted on the thing, on the public notice with that? Or, because I know we have to move around from time to time, so is a location for the
October
mid-month?
mid-month, we will still hold true, and we'll have it in our planning office down on the ground floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Any other miscellaneous business this evening? All right, I believe that is all. So with that, I will take a motion to be in recess.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor of recessing until Wednesday? Any opposed? All right, thank you all very much.
Good meeting, Chair.
What a great
Well done.
It was a great discussion.